grab your drink and sit down. Listen to the podcast of the strange, the old, the pagan, and the Christian overcoming evil. This is the Grizzly Files podcast.
Oh, thanks, dog. What are you even eating? Right when I start the recording? Really? You know what? I'm leaving that in. Hey, everybody. We don't have what you would call a professional studio. Even if I did, I'd still bring the dog in to annoy all of you. So you could have perfect audio with the crunching in the background.
Because we're not professionals.
Speak for yourself, wife. I just choose to be unprofessionally professional. Anyway, Mama Grizzly's here, dog and cat's here, children are asleep. Welcome to the Grizzly Files. Thank you for that, meow cat. We today are looking...
very cold.
Yes, it is a bit cold, despite being in Florida. It's cold. What are we talking about today, wife?
Winter in Florida?
No.
No, okay.
We're talking...
Sea Serpent?
Sea Serpent. The serpentine of the serpent.
Serpentine?
Serpents.
Serpentine, the turpentine.
The snaky-like entities, the freaks. In this case, very large ones. So, we have a specific case we're going to be looking at. But we'll be looking at... Meow yourself, you butt. I'm recording. Get a life. Earn your own food for a change. Cat. But, you know who is earning his own food before he died?
The fisherman?
No. They were whalers. Whalers. They killed the whale.
They whaled?
Yes. Specifically, a captain... Hey, I have notes this time.
Captain.
Go, Captain Jason Seabury. Seabury.
Did he bury the sea?
Yes, it's probably fine. He was very aptly named.
So, after his historic...
Yes. And... Yeah, we don't have anything to drink right now. We already drank it all. We wasted our caffeinated drinks and such on ranked rivals play. And our cat is sneezing into a sink for some reason. He's so distracting today. Anyway. So
I don't have to be distracting.
You can be all distracting you want to be. Anyway, we'll go... grand and big and wild. And you may, it's interesting when you bring up sea monsters like sea serpents and whatnot.
They were all in the roll with the sea otter.
Yes, my wife is bringing up one of my favorite skeptic arguments ever. The cat is still sneezing. That's not the argument, by the way. Though it might as well. It's just as logical.
It's because that poor thing is cold, and we're in Florida.
Well,
and
if he's cold, why doesn't he come to all of the blankets? It's his own darn fault. Get over here, pussy brains.
That's you, sir.
He appears to be yes, sniff the dog.
Sneeze on the dog.
That'll work. Anyway.
She likes it.
Back to what we were talking about.
Serpents?
No, sea otters.
Sea otters.
Yes. In Monster Quest, the classic silly-ass show from the History Channel that I grew up on, there was one quote-unquote scientist or professional dude who tried to claim that a sea serpent sighting in a lake was because there were a bunch of sea otters swimming in a row, creating the humps.
Was it like in one of the Great Lakes or something?
I forget which lake.
Okay.
It was probably like Ogopogo or something like that. Hilarious. Of all the things that didn't happen, that didn't happen the most.
Sea otters going in a line.
I'm not going to tell you that every sea monster sighting is indeed a sea monster, not mistaken identity, but I can tell you right now, no one's mistaking freaking sea otters. Synchronized swimming sea otters for freaking sea serpent. No one's doing that. Okay, so you can stop. If we could argue for other things. For example, there was a false sighting of a weird sea something or other, which turned out to be a bunch of manatees all in a row in murky water. That was fair. Oh, I pause. We're back. Sorry about that. I might cut that out. Did you really just do that?
Payback.
Brutal. You guys don't even want to know what she did. She's trying to gas me out. Anyway.
Keeps you wondering.
We were talking... Nope. Not really. It's global warming caused by cow farts. Cow farts. Don't you know? That's right, guys. Whenever you guys want to
you know
listen,
there's a lot of cows?
No, like allow a skeptic to look down his nose at you because science and generalities and he's a logical person. Just remind yourself that man and his scientific community is trying to tell you that cow farts are making the world too warm.
Because it's too much.
Cow farts. Just think about that for a minute. That is the level of scientific thought you're dealing with in the modern world.
A whole bunch of rows of sea otters.
Yes, all farting with cows on their back. It's a glorious invasion. Anyway, so obviously the ocean is very large and big and capable of lots of different things. The funny thing about sea serpent sightings is they were much more common in the 1800s, which is what this one's about. And we're talking, these sightings are not like one guy saw it on a drunken night while half pissed drunk and was just about to get hung, so he come up with a story to convince the judge to let him live. No. We're talking entire ships all see it. They all agree that they saw it, and they all do crazy stuff. And this one's particularly interesting because, it gets wild. But these stories really do die down after the 1800s. Now, there's some theories for why that is. Loss of habitat's an interesting one that I've heard. The idea that with a lot of the fishing and the whaling that would happen, like especially in some other stories where the sea serpents are going after whales, that their food went down, loss of habitat because of all the whalers, and so they became more scarce, went deeper, might have even been driven to extinction or almost to extinction. We'll get into what this one was. Not enough sperm. In more ways than one. Both in whale form and others. Now, that is actually a very interesting possibility. If this serpent, for example, is 100%... I had to name it a sperm whale now. My wife can't concentrate on sea serpents. But if it is 100% just a flesh and blood animal, the loss of so many whales would explain why they became more scarce.
And it wasn't Moby Dick.
Nope. And why they went farther and farther deeper in water and became less and less common on the surface. Now, another theory is that all the mechanized boats, like the vibrations, scare them away. I don't know. Others would say, how could they hide with so many boats in the water? The answer to that one is you've obviously never been on the ocean, you half dweeb. Like, honestly, the ocean is freaking massive. And any sailor would tell you, we don't know that much about it. And there's a lot of space for big stuff to hide. And lots of deep areas for them to hide as well. Plus, there's this whole little thing that I dare you, if you're a witness, to go out there and tell everyone that you saw a sea serpent. What's going to happen? Everyone's just going to call you stupid, insane, like you're lying. Why are you bringing up this bike thing right now? Bike thieves? It's on the nose. There are apparently a wave of bike thieves on the nose. The bears will be happy. Don't ask. And so...
It's a real life.
The point I'm making there is witnesses will not be believed. Proof at this point will not be accepted. Any photo will be declared fake. Any video will be declared fake. Any specimen washed up on shore will not be properly scientifically documented. It will be just called a blob monster and just declared a dead whale or something like that. Whale of a tale. And thus easily ignored by the scientific, quote unquote, scientific community, who, again, I tell you, are trying to tell you that the world is getting warmer because of cow farts. Never mind that there used to be a lot more animals on the globe when there were less humans around, and they were all farting, presumably, this entire time. You know, your steak is making the world warmer through cow farts.
I thought it was just getting warmer because of the,
Snake farts? Sea serpent farts?
No, because it was cooking.
Oh, I'll make it warmer from that. We're having hamburgers tomorrow, baby.
And also snow in here.
Oh, baby. But.
Baby back.
So, I bring all this up as context for this coming conversation. Because there is more than one way to look at sea monster sightings. But we'll get into that a little later. Let's get into the story. So it is 1852, gentlemen.
No, it's 2025.
I'm staring at my wife in frustration, but we're going to move on. It is 1852 in our story. The Civil War has not happened in the United States. I think Andrew Jackson is possibly in the presidency, but do not quote me on that. If he is, he's busy shooting all those assholes who keep calling his wife a whore, and that's entertaining. I wish I could shoot out any asshole who calls my wife a whore. That sounds like a good time. This is
Nobody's called me a whore.
Yeah. Ironically, someone's called me a racist pig, but they don't let you shoot them.
That was your own mother.
Just kind of leaving that part out. Thanks, Anyway, so we go to one of these infamous whaling ships, a whale of a tale, but the captain's name is not Ahab. It is, in fact, unfortunately named Seabury. Captain Jason Seabury, in charge of the whaling ship Morahela. It's a weird name. What the hell?
What the hell?
And it was based out of New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. That sounds like a prosthesis.
Yes.
Prosthetic, sorry.
And I'm kicking myself in my notes. I forgot to write down where in the ocean they declared this sighting happened. But it's much more than a sighting. But
hopefully in the water.
No, it was a sea serpent on the Sahara.
No, it had its toes in the water and its ass in the sand.
Dune sandworm is what it was. Watch out.
Its tail was still in the water.
It was a whale of a tail. Anyway, so our entrepreneuring captain, looked out. Their lookout saw white water on the surface, and if you don't know, whaling ships would look for the foam,
yeah,
to find pods of whales. It was signs.
Is that why we have foam here in this ocean?
Not always, no. Remember, whales aren't as in the deep ocean.
In the deeps. Okay.
There's like a certain white water that shows that there's a big bodies moving around.
Oh,
so they were. Maybe if it's a sperm whale. Anyway, you made me do the sperm choke. God.
I choked on that.
Choked on that sperm whale.
No. Oh God, no, don't swallow.
There it is. Wife did it, not me.
I don't swallow.
That must make it really hard to not swallow. Okay, God. Why did you do that to me? So we're going to keep moving on. So they think they found a pod of whales. And so they're sitting on the surface waiting for the whales. I'm going to get through this story and you're not going to stop me. It's not going to happen.
Oh, God. I'm having so hard.
All right. Whaling ship waiting for whales on the surface of the ocean, all right? But to their shock, instead of a pot of whales, a sea serpent appears. A freaking big old sea serpent with a funky head, and they're all in shock. And like the captain wrote this all down on a letter, and he says everyone just sort of sat and stared, not knowing what to do. The sea serpent like comes out. It looks like it's already been injured, and it's acting really strange, and like it's having trouble with its lungs. And then it kind of looks around.
I choked too much.
Yeah, whatever it was. We'll get into that one. And then it goes under the water and then pops up again like a mile away from them. And
how many seconds did that take? Like really quick?
he didn't say how many seconds. I'd have to bring up the
minutes,
letter again. Oh, by the way, I discovered online like an entire book written in the 1800s, or maybe the 1900s, about sea serpent sightings going from like 1831 to 1870 something. So I'm going to be reading all of those. It's going to be really interesting. So, but this is one of them that I highlighted on that I thought would make a really interesting episode.
Sure, a lot of jokes about it.
Mm-hmm. So far, it's been great. It's been easy money, but the captain, being a very interesting go-getter kind of American fellow, went and told everyone to go to the boats. And his first mate kind of looks at him and goes, why? If we catch him, we can't sell him. He doesn't give us anything but trouble. And the captain basically says, go to the boats, you little bitch. And then when they go to the boats, and he tells the ship to chase after the sea serpent, he goes for this speech about how if they tell people in port, nobody's going to believe them, so they need to bring back proof. And the first thing anyone's going to ask them is why they didn't have the balls to go chase down the sea serpent. And the only answer they're going to have is that their manhood was at stake and they didn't do it. And this apparently was the right thing to say to American sailors in the 1800s, because they apparently all volunteered except for one British guy and a native, so some Indian guy, some Native American guy. Now, you can argue maybe the captain's embellishing there, but whatever. So they all go to their...
White supremacy.
I believe him personally. He might be overstating his speech. Maybe they were all gung-ho about going. But it does kind of ring true, right? Your first mate kind of hints like, hey, why are we doing this, Captain? It's not like we can sell its blubber. It's not a whale. And he says, shut the fuck up in front of everybody. Don't you talk back to me, boy. And then the alpha captain goes, okay, maybe I do need to encourage people here. And then he says, I'm not ordering you. You're volunteering. And then they finally catch up to the serpent, who again seems to be acting like it's already injured. They all get in the boats, and they take their harpoons, and Seabury says that he's in the first boat, and they lodge a couple of harpoons inside the snake, and the snake seems to ignore them at first. Then it gets pissed and lunges at the first boat, which is the captain's boat. He says he gets a lucky strike with his harpoon in its eye, and they all like get thrown into the ocean, and it thrashes around and does crazy crap.
Wow.
A couple people jump overboard of their boats because they're like, "What's gonna smash them?" And then the snake goes really deep, but it's really interesting. You get all these. His letter is very detailed, and all the different whaling terms and the different lines they had attached to them. Because remember, these harpoons have lines, ropes attached to them. This is how they catch the whales, right? They would injure the whale goes deep, and then they would keep them in the line.
So they don't lose it. Yeah.
And then when it comes back up, they can attack it again. Well, they do that with the snake. So they got lucky. Nobody got killed when the giant sea serpent was thrashing around, and he got the lucky hit into the eye.
I mean, that's a lot of mass just being...
Yeah, and so they get back in the boats. And there's this whole
belly flap from the boat.
Oh, it's crazy.
Just imagine like a body with belly flop. How much those hurt?
Don't think anyone belly
If
flopped.
anybody
Anyway, everyone survived so far. And they all make it back into the boats, and Seabury says that there was just a couple guys kind of shaken because they got...
Oh, no shit.
And so there's this whole part in the letter, and I wish I'd written down how deep it goes, but basically crushing depth. And the guy, like the fathoms of the ropes they were letting out to keep the lines attached
Was screeching?
was like
loosening?
way like thousands of fathoms deep, and the captain was like, how could anything survive that kind of crush depth? It was very
Wow.
interesting, right? Now we know that animals can, and there's deep stuff
Yeah.
and whatnot, but he was very impressed. Like, the detail in this letter lends so much credibility. This captain knew what he was talking about.
He knows probably more than what scientists.
These days, yes, because how many scientists have gone whaling? None at this point, as I understand it. Might be a bit of a PETA issue. It'd be a whale of a tail.
Is that where that tip comes from?
Anyway, so they follow this sea serpent, and it eventually resurfaces. And they harpoon it to death because it's even more injured now.
I'm
and
more pissed.
And it doesn't fight back as hard.
Okay.
And they kill it. Now, not knowing what they basically, being whalers, treat it like a whale and cut it all up and dissect it. They find to their surprise that it's not covered in scales but blubber like a whale, like a fish or a whale.
Oh, wow. And
so this and they measured it. They said it was 103 feet long, which is huge. Like 100. Have you seen a 100-foot long boat? I'm trying to think to give.
Okay.
Hang on, we're gonna pause.
Pausing.
More pausing.
I got check on.
Yeah. Whew. And we're back. The joys of children, they're amazing. I love them. Sometimes they want to interrupt everything.
Parenting.
Mm-hmm. So, they measure the snake to be about 103 feet long, covered in this thick blubber, which is interesting, like a whale.
Mm-hmm.
And
so like an eel.
Yeah, kind of like an eel too.
A sea snake. Like those little sea snakes that you naturally see, but oversized.
Yeah, but fascinatingly enough, it was a snake though. We'll get into that. It was at its neck 19 feet thick, a 20-foot thick snake. If you think about it, I can give you guys some clarification. What's a 20-foot thing that I can think of off the top of my head? Like a bus is about 20 feet, right?
A truck, 20-foot.
Yeah,
truck.
A bus, a standard bus is about 25 feet long.
Like a school bus?
Yeah, like a school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking a box truck, like
box truck works too. Like a
truck.
small, like a medium moving truck is about 20 feet long.
So that's how wide it was.
That's how wide.
The snake. So if you put the length of the truck sideways.
Mm-hmm. But at its thickest point, it was 49 feet wide. Like, that's really freaking thick. That is a huge, thick thing. Now, your first thought, like me, might be, how the hell did they kill this kind of thing? But remember...
They're used to whales, like, being...
Well, remember, it was already injured before they started attacking it. They attacked it again. They got a lucky hit on its eye.
Right.
And remember when they...
I don't want to know. That's creepy.
You know, I didn't say anything about its eye.
It's gone.
So they found it injured already. When they first stabbed it, it barely cared, which, because it was so big, that's not surprising. And then it came around to say, what the heck are these weird little human things attacking me?
Why do they keep pricking me?
And then a lucky spear shot to the eye, and then it goes deep to try to get away from them, and it's weakened again. It comes back to the surface, and they start harpooning it till it finally bleeds out. It's crazy to think about. But as my wife did bring up, Mrs. Grizzly pointed out, they kill whales that are 100 feet long this way as well. Mm-hmm. Those things are freaking thick.
I mean, you gotta cut them in a certain way too, like the long way, and you gotta slice it up like you do tuna.
Now, you could be all modern about this, but I'm actually kind of impressed. Am I happy that they killed too many whales? No. But I am. You gotta be impressed with some guys going after an animal that big with nothing but a freaking harpoon and a small little boat. That's pretty crazy. That takes a lot of balls. And then...
More than a boat crew. Oh,
buddy. Now, the head was also very large, and they went into a lot of detail about it.
It's large.
It had 94 teeth, and like a snake, they were all pointed backwards. If you don't know, snakes have...
Yeah,
basically, they clamp down, and
then they...
Yeah. Like kind of an anaconda's teeth. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough. In its stomach, they found giant sea squid and big, large black fish that just, like, melted off the bones because the acid was so thick. Wow. Like, the details that these guys gave was intense.
I would hate to be the person who has to clean up all that gunk.
Yeah.
And like
Oh,
scrape the
and
boat,
they-
clean the boat.
And they were talking about how like the blubber, when it was so like, it would burn really hot, and it would like they did all these experiments with it, and he detailed it all in his letter. The Seabury guy, the captain, and like
Did it melt part of the boat?
Well, the funny thing about fish blubber too is they would talk about how no, it didn't melt part of the boat.
Okay.
That if they stretched it out and they would like deal with the blubber, it would like shrink 5 or 6 feet. As a cook myself, fish does this.
Yeah, when you cook it,
and it shrinks. It's very
like
fascinating.
certain meats, it will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, being whalers, they cut it up like a whale.
Yeah.
And they preserve the head with salt and keep all the bones.
Because they want to.
And kept the oil to see if they could sell it, which is hilarious.
I would not want to spray like. Imagine you're going on a date, right? And you.
Am I going to take you sea serpent hunting, wife?
Maybe he made it for his wife. It's like.
All I know is I'm taking something bigger than a harpoon. We got 50 caliber weapons now.
What I'm saying is like, what if he made with the perfume right out of the oil,
Out of the oil,
and then give it to his wife? Like, hey, honey, I got you some.
Well, as we're going to find out, spoiler alert, he never has the chance to do anything like that. So, on further inspection, it had paws. It had like it wasn't visible at first, but it had like 4 swimming appendages, which is crazy.
It wasn't like little fins.
It had like little fins on its snake body that they didn't notice till after they killed it.
But it was like webbed.
Yeah, webbed like little paw things for swimming, like an otter. But it was like, right? What a crazy beast. And again, it lends so much credibility. Because if this guy was just making up a sea serpent story, why would you bother with that? Why would you say, oh, it had blubber like a whale? Why wouldn't you just say it had scales like everyone imagines it should be, right? Everyone has this image of what a sea serpent should be. You would follow that exact image if you're making a hoax. You wouldn't come up with all this crazy stuff that people kind of look sideways at you like, why would it have blubber like a whale? Why wouldn't it have scales? Why would it need paws to swim if it was already making the snake motion? Right?
Yeah.
All this crazy stuff. And again, though, the teeth hint at it being snake-like, whatever it was. Interestingly enough, they also confirmed that it breathed like a whale. It had 2 snorkel holes, basically. So it would take big breaths, and then it would go extremely deep, like whales do.
Did it have like lungs?
It did. They actually dissected the lungs. And remember how it was having trouble breathing when they found it?
Yeah.
One lung was like 3 feet longer than the other. So it had some weird lung issue.
It got punctured.
Yeah, something like that had damaged it. Maybe when it was eating a squid.
A ruptured lung.
That's possible. Maybe it went too deep or something. That's possible. And that's part of the reason why they were able to kill it, was because it was already injured and having trouble breathing. There's also an argument to be made that they didn't kill it. It died on its own and they were just harassing it. Which is very possible, considering
it ran out of vitamin.
Well, remember, it went deep with a ruptured lung. Right. That could have killed it all the more.
And then you have all this weight on you.
Yeah. There's also the possibility that the sea captain there wasn't a battle at all, and they just found it dying on the surface.
Well, what if they got the lung too? The rest of the lung, or with the other, because they harpooned it. They harpooned it so many times, right? So if you keep
they got
harpooning, they got more of the lungs.
That's very possible too. So it ranges from.
There's a lot of reasons why it would be shrunken 3 feet.
Smaller than
the other side.
It ranges from they killed it to it was already dying and they just pushed it along to it died on its own and they just found it, and he came up with this story about them killing it because sea stories. But nonetheless, it is all very fascinating details in the whole dissection thing.
How old was this captain?
It didn't say how old he was, but I get the feeling that he wasn't too old.
Like, it seems like mid-age?
Like he sounds like an adventurous fellow, if you know what I mean. Like he doesn't.
Would he be like in his 30s then?
I didn't look it up. I should have looked it up.
Okay.
It didn't come up in my research. You're such a woman. I should bring you in on my research.
Because you said he didn't have a chance to.
Oh, we'll get there.
Get
more spoilers.
Was it because he died? Did he die young?
Oh, we're getting there.
Was it a certain? That's what I'm thinking. If he was young and trying to get a.
Why don't you just let the story play out?
Yeah, maybe that might be a good idea.
That might help, yeah. I think I got you interested there, which is fascinating. You're not usually into this kind of thing. So,
I got my jokes out. It helps.
So, later on, where are we in my notes?
Maybe just...
Okay, here we go. So, we actually got this letter with all the detail of the attack and the dissection from a letter that the Captain Jason Seabury wrote.
Excuse me? I mean, yeah.
Wrote out with all its details, and then delivered to another boat, to Captain Sturges of the brig Gypsy.
The Big Gypsy.
That was the brig's a type of boat.
A Big Gypsy.
The name was it was the Gypsy brig, if you will. The name of the brig was Gypsy.
Okay, the brig was named Gypsy. Got it.
Yeah, and it was on its way back to their home port in Massachusetts. They weren't due for another year. Like their voyage was a 3-year voyage.
That letter would have taken a long time to get there. Holy cow!
And so everyone was this letter went to a number of newspapers and stuff. Everyone was excited to talk to them about it and maybe see the head that they preserved and all that. But no one would get the opportunity. The ship was never seen again. After Gypsy saw it, they disappeared. There is what seems to be, what claimed to be wreckage from what they assume was, what was the name of the ship again? Mahorahela. We'll just say Seabury's ship in the Arctic after this. And no one ever saw them again.
Wait a minute here.
It's so
Wait a minute. The Titanic?
Titanic?
Honey?
What?
Wasn't in the Arctic?
Clearly, the ghost of the Titanic came out and killed them for attacking the Sea Serpent, wife says. Or was it the Sea Serpent that killed the Titanic and the ghost of the Titanic came back for revenge on those who got revenge of the Sea Serpent? I don't know.
What happened first? When was the Titanic?
The Titanic was much later. Okay. Much later.
It was round 2. They wanted more.
What am I going to do with you? Now, it should be noted that whaling ships would go to the Arctic.
Yes.
To go for whales. Funny enough,
it's so funny to say and come up with stupid things.
The last time I did research on this was actually on one of the South's merchant harassing ships, like their cruisers, and they destroyed 10 a crazy amount of whaling ships, Union whaling ships, right after the war ended, and they didn't know the war had ended yet, right? So they accidentally committed piracy outside of war, and they were going to be tried for that, and they had to make this whole long voyage to escape being hung for being pirates when they were technically doing it during wartime, but news traveled slowly. That's fun. Anyway, that's not as we're with Sea Serpent. So there's a couple ways to look at that. The first way to remember is this is a whaling ship.
Right.
It's a dangerous thing to be doing. As we point out, hunting whales, big 100 feet long things, and apparently with a captain willing to chase things like sea serpents that are 100 feet long, it's very likely that they just met with a very angry pot of whales that sunk them. Very unfortunate, and thus all the evidence went down with them.
The whales got their revenge. The whales got
The other way to look at it is maybe these sea serpents are like whales more than just their breathing and don't like it when one of their own members get killed. It's possible. But I would argue in that sense, unless it's like a bloodhound following them, that they wouldn't have had a chance to drop off their letter. Still, kind of an interesting thought with that.
They got their letter. Huh.
Yeah. They got their letter off to the brig. But again, it is more likely that they just met a bad end while hunting more whales, because that's what they were going to continue to do for a good year.
They had space on that after getting
mm-hmm. Remember, they would also be going into ports and selling their wares and then coming back, right? And they're mostly going after the oil.
Yeah.
So those would, like, they can make that into barrels and stuff and whatnot. And one could argue, as they get more oil,
Does somebody get greedy with
the
the
things become more dangerous because that oil is very flammable. One errant match, one guy smoking in the wrong spot, the whole ship goes up. Right?
Or down in this case.
Up and then down.
Cannonball.
So that shouldn't be ignored. Plenty of whaling ships went down because of natural causes. The final way to look at this, which is very entertaining from my perspective, is this thing was more than just a physical animal that they killed. And it brought some kind of curse or bad luck with them, or something didn't like the idea of them spreading such evidence of the sea serpent's existence. Hooey, but you're in the right podcast to talk about those options.
Oh man, if you think of something spiritual and you got like this oil or whatever to do your weird dark stuff, woo.
Well, we do have a story that I've heard about of a man who killed the canine cryptid known as a dogman with poison. His dad poisoned them because they were killing their cattle, and they put a bunch of antifreeze and a bunch of steaks, and they put it out where they knew the dogmen would be. The dogmen took the bait and died by antifreeze. Case in point, if you're being bothered by strange large monsters, rather than going toe-to-toe with them, try poisoning them first. Food for thought. Just make sure your dogs don't get into the antifreeze steaks. Now, what's interesting about that story is the son did a boo-boo. The dad told him not to do this, but the son kept...
He kept something?
He kept a skull.
Why the skull?
And he got all kinds of bad luck. His house burnt down. All this crazy things happened. Now, maybe, if we get into the crazy ideas, the sea serpents like the dogman and brought about spiritual evil upon the ship that kept the skull of the sea serpent with them. Now, if we add biblical knowledge to this, why did you have to distract me with a picture of a snow woman in a bikini? That's very distracting.
with the drinking a martini on the beach. Winter in Florida.
All I know is that means you need to pose in that now and that for me later.
No.
Moving on. Hey, I made 4 kids.
It's
somehow.
official. It snowed at the Waffle House in Florida. I'm sorry. Sea serpent, sorry.
Came here for professionalism. That's what they came for. That's why she farted on camera. Wait, we're recording.
You said you would say it.
You said it. They probably heard it.
It was silent.
But deadly.
You told them I did something, and then you said you wouldn't say it, and then you said it.
Do you need me to cut it out?
No. Keep it. I've heard it on the screen before.
Wow, now I feel like I have to cut it out. You hear her trying to, like, not only distract me, but make me feel like a horrible person? Anyway, we're going to keep moving.
Last night,
if we add biblical knowledge to the way some stuff like Dogman and other cryptids work, we can point out that, at least according to a combination of what's in the Bible and the Book of Enoch, that demons, unclean spirits, are not fallen angels. They are the descendants, the spirits of giants and things like the cryptid monsters that were mixes of humans and animals and giants. Now, why are you doing this?
I'm sorry, but
give me your phone. You don't get your phone anymore. I have allowed too many distractions.
I'm listening.
We're here to make people's distractions, not be distracted ourselves by other distractions.
Apparently, this kind of distraction in our rants about
Let's not use that word anymore. I'm going to get to my point now. The point is... Don't make me do it. You don't want to know what she's doing. Anyway, the point is... These things, being the sons of Nephilim and fallen watchers, have nowhere to go. No heaven, no hell, no purgatory, so they roam the earth. And thus, it's not surprising that they might be attached to whatever thing has hung on to their head, for example.
Wow.
Now, if this sea serpent isn't just a normal animal, but is like the dogman, like the giants and whatnot, and is some weird form of watcher descendant, some creepy thing they made, that could be possessed by demons and whatnot, then keeping its skull on your ship was a very bad idea. Which would basically mean the demonic spirit of that sea serpent would be following them and haunting them the whole way. Ooh, I mean, I know, that sounds like a novel in and of itself in my mind.
That's crazy.
Now, again, as I would point out, plenty of whaling ships went down for perfectly normal reasons, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Though I won't say it's completely unlikely that there'd be no survivors. It is kind of surprising that there were no survivors. This crew was obviously competent any way you look at it. Even if they just found the sea serpent dead, they seemed to know how they were doing their work. And if we take the story at full face value and assume not too much embellishment, they were really good at their jobs. So I would have assumed somebody would have survived, unless it was a really bad sea wreck of some kind. Again, ships do disappear and get swallowed by the ocean, especially in this time period all the time. It's just kind of interesting around, like, this major event happens, they have such full-on proof, and then they just disappear without a trace. Well, no, there was a small trace, but assumed trace. There was the wreckage found out in the Arctic. Now, another angle to take with this is certain powers that be didn't want the knowledge of the sea serpent, for whatever reason, to spread. They had a certain narrative that they wanted the world to understand, and sea serpents weren't part of that, and so they took actions to make sure that sea serpent skull was never found. This can go as far as government officials, like, just sent out a ship, killed them for the thing, and like say, well, why would they do that? Again, when you're trying to establish a narrative on the scientific level to allow yourself to have a certain paradigm, and think about the power that scientists have had my entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can declare that bread is good for you. Like, this happened in the 80s and 90s, guys. They declared that bread was good for you and that, like, butter was bad and you should eat margarine. Like, their declarations led to countless deaths and heart attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just taken on face value without much inspection.
And then they take it back and say, oh, wait, it's not good for you.
Right. And that's the kind of power that scientists have held. And the way they did it was fashioning these narratives from, like, the 1500s onwards and the 1800s and all this, of establishing science is basically God. Science declares everything and what reality is, blah, blah, blah. And to do that, they had to periodically set up these narratives that they knew what was happening and they weren't wrong. And guess what one of the narratives in this time frame was? Sea monsters don't exist, and all those sailors and all those cultures talking about them were just superstitious. All those stories about the Leviathan in the Bible was just superstition, and the Bible was false. See, right? This is why they would have certain groups, and you say, what certain groups? Well, again, we know that there was plenty of Freemasons in charge of a lot of shipping back then.
Well, just think about Scientology, too. They have,
careful, I don't know when they started their stuff.
Oh,
That's a fairly modern movement.
Thing? Okay, never mind.
But
scratch that.
There was plenty of other groups in existence, including Freemasons and whatnot, that might have had an invested interest in making sure that something like a sea serpent was not proven to have existed. Now, that's, again, a bit of a stretch in my mind. Where would they have found them? Did they hunt them down once the knowledge got out during the newspaper? Maybe, right? That's possible. Newspapers pop up.
The closest, port, just wait for them one time and...
That's all, again, right? The newspapers get out. Someone goes, hey, we don't want this knowledge spreading. They look for the ship. They find it in whatever port. They go out and they make it look like they died in a shipwreck. It's possible. That one I find less likely. The
Mm.
other option is more demonic spirit play, if you will.
Wow.
That's the motive, but something more UFO related killed them. And like, are people like, oh, this guy's no, really. Aleister Crowley, the great freak, and by great I mean infamous pervert and asshole and cultist, who, by the way, was hired by the British government to curse Hitler and all kinds of stuff.
Did they touch the boat? Curse the boat?
We're getting to that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm bringing him up to explain some things. He was actually much later. He was like World War II. This is 1800s.
But like somebody like
I'm establishing something here.
Okay.
He was a very famous cultist and was the guy who coined the term "do what thou wilt." Very bad dude, whatever. But he is an interesting window into the eyes of the freakish cultic groups that control a lot of different nations right now. And I don't bother need to explain that. That could be a separate episode in and of itself. But famously, he had a spirit demon entity that he would talk to. I forget its name, and I don't feel like talking about its name right now.
Right.
But he drew a picture of what it looked like, and it looked exactly like an alien gray. Spacesuit type thing and all.
Mm-hmm.
And this entity told him that right now you call me demon, but later and very soon they will call us something else. Right?
Wow.
Aliens. Hinting, and this is in World War II, right before suddenly all these things that would have been called fairies, demons, monsters, spiritual entities, right? For centuries, that's what they've been called. Then the shift happens right around World War II in the 1950s, and suddenly they're space aliens. So what I'm pointing out is, for a similar motivation, you could have a UFO take out the boat. This is interesting because there's lots of stories about UFOs coming out of the water, which we get even more interesting because connecting that to sea monsters, the beast in Revelations is supposed to come out of the water. And
is it going to come out of the Bermuda Triangle?
I don't know. It just says it comes out of the oceans. And also, in both Islamic culture and in ancient Hebrew culture, the sea has always been seen as the primordial ultimate chaos. Don't quote me on Hebrew culture, but at least certain Islamic groups believe that, and by like not just Islam, but like ancient stuff before the Islam, that the devil's kingdom, he is under the water, like Poseidon. And Atlantis is tied to the trident. Atlantis is tied to pre-flood civilization, the giants and all those freaks. If you think about Atlantis as being, I'm using that a lot, but Atlantis being almost like an allegory for the pre-flood civilization that God destroyed, right? You get this feeling, all these different cultures. You were just so gassy.
I'm sorry. Stress and everything, and then meat.
Lots of meat. And then all these different cultures talking about how there's an ancient chaos in the ocean, in the deep oceans. So we get this theme that maybe there was much more spiritual aspect to sea monster, or in this case, this sea monster. And something took them out to make sure the knowledge of it didn't spread. And again, we have several different possibilities. But I will be straight with everybody listening to this. I have no proof of any of those different options. And I still think the most likely case, though it's suspect, because, right, you have such obvious proof of a sea serpent that would be really hard to refute. Just poof, conveniently disappearing at just the right moment.
Wow.
Right? But again, whaling ships disappear all the time. On the other hand,
but usually there's
whaling But, as I was going to say, whaling ships disappear all the time, meaning anyone trying to get rid of that evidence would know if you got rid of the ship, no one would question it.
True.
Because whaling ships disappear all the time. It's like you want to murder a soldier, wait for him to be deployed, and then shoot him. Is anyone going to question how he died? They're not going to think that was a murder. Right? You know, I got distracted there, but you get the point of what I'm saying. If something's expected to be dangerous, people don't question when that dangerous something comes to pass. Like, no one thinks there's foul play if one of those guys who has to change the light bulb on the top of a tower falls to his death. Okay, you know, it's unfortunate, but it's not unexpected. A parachutist's parachute fails and they die when they're parachuting. You know, there's a whole song with the original paratroopers, like, glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Just literally talking that the paratroopers would sing in World War II, talking about a guy's parachute failing and he like dies in a gory way. Okay, this is not, you expect things to happen in dangerous careers. But that leaves a window if you want to get rid of a paratrooper. Well, the best way to do it is to do something to his parachute, and as long as it's not too obvious, no one's going to think about it, right? So, same thing with a whaling ship. If you know whaling...
Did someone sabotage it before they left?
Well, who knows?
Just in case they got something?
No.
Okay.
It would have to have been afterwards, and after they've been aboard. And again,
nobody believed them.
If it's a spiritual thing, or even...
Spiritual sabotage?
Yeah, or even some cultic group not wanting this knowledge to spread.
And they heard about it through the letters? Okay.
Either of these options, right, could have easily happened and we would never have known, and no one would have questioned a whaling ship disappearing.
Now we're just going... Okay.
It's one of those things. It is one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard. It has so much veracity to it. The detail in the letter.
Veracity?
Veracity.
Oh, veracity. Variety. Yeah.
No, that's not what veracity means. Veracity means like it's never mind. It's very credible would be the way to put it. But I like that word better, veracity. Okay. You already ate. Stop meowing. Greedy cat. Oh, I even gave him some jerky.
Hey! That's my chicken, bro!
he looked right at you. Oh man, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to this. How long have we been going? 52 minutes.
We're doing good. I think you're thirsty.
I am thirsty. Oh, he's thirsty. But he's also looking at chicken. But yeah.
Hey! My chicken!
That goes to tell your folks. I won't tell you not to kill the sea serpent if you get a chance. But if you do, and you're foolish enough to keep a piece of the body, you better be praying hardcore. Or be expecting all kinds of weird crap. Otherwise, you might just figure out what happened to Captain Seabury.
And yet, your story won't be able to be shared.
And it won't be. And no one will believe you anyway, so you're better off just not taking any of it with you. But you still probably kill it, because I'm entertained by that. And I'm not like one of those weird panda dudes who are like, oh, you killed a magnificent beast. Magnificent beast. Like, they talk about that like with lions. I'm like, you realize how rapey lions are?
Or bunnies.
Like, it's not... I'm not saying that animals aren't cool.
It's like people who are like, oh, look at the black bear. He's so friendly and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do you know how many times that black bear has been in my trash can?
Well, that was kind of petty of you, but sure. I guess if it was a raccoon, like, yeah. Well, it's just a big old raccoon.
It is a big old raccoon, but it will kill you. Raccoons can harm you and maybe kill you to get you in the jugular.
Well, but the point I was trying to get at is I'm not one of those people that overly humanizes something.
Poor teddy bear.
Though I guess if it is just a physical creature, I would feel sad if they were wiped out. But on the other hand, if it's a demonic entity of some kind that took on physical, then kill it, please. Yes, kill it. You're distracting. Now, an interesting facet, we did bring up Aleister Crowley. Guess where his winter home was, where he did a lot of his witchcraft.
In Arkansas? I mean, in Arkansas.
Did you just say Arkansas?
I was trying to say Antarctica. You came out Antarctica.
No, it's on Loch Ness. Loch Ness Lake. And you may wonder, then, if something the sightings of Nessie aren't so much a physical creature or just a physical creature.
Did he bring it?
Who knows, right? The funny thing about Loch Ness is it actually has a long history of witchcraft, even before Crowley. Crowley put his house there because of that weirdness. And that's,
That man is messed up.
Oh, yeah. He's dead, thank God. But hey, that's another episode. We'll let you guys decide what happened to Captain Seabury and whether or not this was just a physical beast or something more.
I'm going with the latter.
Alright, well, we have an outro, so I'm going to play it. Catch you guys in the next one, and this has been a lot of fun, so I hope to see you there. You want to say bye, Cat? Meow? Okay, good enough.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching another episode of the Grizzly Files. New episodes come up every Saturday at 5 p.m., so make sure to come back for that. We also have a Sunday school lessons for young men called The Warrior's Path. New lessons go up every single Sunday at 9:30 in the morning in written form, and then on arcava.com, and then we'll do a live stream going over it the next day on every Monday at 10 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. depending on when my kids go to bed. We also have another live stream on Fridays, which is our Grizzly gaming stream. It's a good time to hang out and talk games and all kinds of crazy crap. That one, again, will start at 10 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. depending on when my kids go to bed. We also have a kids book that you guys should check out. It's called David and the Three Bears. It's up on Amazon. It's like if you made a story about King David as a kid when he's attacking bears and things into a fable. Yeah, that's all. Come back for more. We're going to be making more content as we go. So like, subscribe, share. Come back for it all. Can't wait to see you there.